All right, let's continue on with Cersei. Um, so where we went last time, Cersei was dealing with the seeing the sconce ajar, and not trusting the woman in her bed, which is Tyene Sand. She then talks to Tommen, who tells her that there's going to be a new regent and that tomorrow Numeria Sand is going to show up. And then we jump to the Numeria Sand at court, where the first part is largely a lot of introductions of what characters are still in King's Landing, and then hearing about um, Bonifer Hasty. But then comes the gifts. And so Numeria comes with three gifts. And so let's continue on. Randall Tarley ignored her. You spoke of gifts. Have you brought us spears? And this is kind of a funny thing because Dorne has been claiming that they're staunch allies to the Lannisters for years now, and these hosts are they haven't done anything. They didn't participate in the War of the Five Kings. Alas, no. By my uncle's orders, the Dornish hosts remain in the Boneway and the Prince's Past. Now, keep in mind that around this time, Arion did send letters out, and so with there's the confusion of dragon and war. So we're not sure actually where in truth where the what's going on with the armies. However, um, Lady Nim believes that they're still there. But we have gifts for the king and his queens. Where, may I ask, are his queens? So we figured three king and his queens, king and his two queens, three gifts. The Queen Dowager is present. Maester Balabar gestured toward the balcony. She has been anticipating your arrival. Queen Marjorie and her cousins remain in the maiden vault, in custody of the justiciar. Custody is used as in like the care of. George does use it as in the same sense as a police officer taking people into custody, but there's the care of is used often here, often in Ice and Fire. Um, so let's keep in mind that Lady Nim believes that Cersei planned to kill Trystane. So she's going to have real hatred for Cersei. That she's so Lady Nim only gave a cursory glance up at Cersei. By the way, Lady Nim, she's sometimes called Lady Nymeria. She's sometimes called Lady Nim. She's sometimes called the Lady Nim, and she's sometimes just called Nim. She gets lots of names. Lady Nim only gave a cursory glance up at Cersei before addressing the king. Your Grace, for your Queen Marjorie, we have brought a rare beast from the mountains of Dorne. One of her entourage came forward, dragging a glimmering bronze cage. Within sat a creature with dull brown fur and a face as pink as a newborn babe's. Cousins to the children of the forest, as it is said. This ape is in because the Dornish are somewhat based on Spain. The the ape in the cage is the apes from that are in Gibraltar in Spain. I think they're called a Barbary macaque. So the Barbary macaque is what she's brought. But of course, everybody in Westeros is like, what is this? So that's why she says it's a cousin of the children of the forest, and plus we heard about all these animals in the Tyrion chapter, from the Beastmaster and such. So we're kind of referencing that as well. But this monkey is here because there's a loose plot thread from A Feast for Crows where it's said that that Marjorie, for her cousin, was trying to get a monkey for to replace the dead monkey that was killed in the Battle of the Blackwater. So the the loud cousin is Mega, and Mega fancies. Um, she fancies. I'm trying to get it. I don't want to screw up his name here. Um, uh, with his monkey. It's he's from the damn. How am I Mark Mullendore. Yes, Mark Mullendore's monkey. So Mark Mullendore's monkey was was killed at the Blackwater. Mega fancies Mark Mullendore, so she wants to get a replacement for him. Marjorie does the favor for her, but then the favor gets gone to Willis, and so it's this large chain of like people trying to get a hold of a monkey. And so here we have Lady Nim bringing this ape from because of this monkey, because of Mark Mullendore's monkey getting killed. Okay, so he says, an unusual request to be sure. These are unusual times. We're not one to refuse a queen. She turned again to the king's justiciar. Do you keep a menagerie, Lord Tarley? Besides the one for maidens, I mean. This is this idea that Marjorie and the cousins are now in the cages. He says, I can make arrangements, said Lord Randall, so stiffly that his jaw moved not an inch. Now, Cersei being all paranoid, you might think that she's coming up with some sort of weird logic that this is somehow an insult. So Cersei had to bite her lip from laughing. The Brazen Girl's father had crippled Willis Tyrell in the list years ago, and Marjorie had loathed Dornish ever since. The caged ape was a slight, no doubt. The idea that somehow this ape is Marjorie, like in a cage, because Marjorie is caged in the maiden vault, but Cersei's also imprisoned, so she's really quite like Cersei's being an idiot here, right? But it's I think Lady Nim would have left before they even heard about Cersei and Marjorie being arrested. I have to check on that, but I don't know if they'd have time to come up with a joke like that. For the king himself, Lady Nymeria continued, may I present Sir Miles Manwoody, brother to Lord Dagos Manwoody. So, in A Feast for Crows, it is said that Cersei wants to get a new Master at Arms to train Tommen. So, she specifically thinks that she's going to send to Dorne. And so, Miles Manwoody is randomly a brother that came with Dagos Manwoody in A Storm of Swords, and you're like, why is this brother character even there? Normally we think about the Lord and his children, but now we hear about this brother, so we're going to throw this brother into the story and try to give him some character. And so the knight stepped forward, large as a bull. We're going to come back to that, with a wild look about him, even for a Dornishman. His surcoat bore a skull and crown, and his face was covered by thick brown beard in need of grooming. It wasn't a beard of a man who chose to be bearded, but of a man who had simply given up on shaving. This is just all character stuff. This is just color. Or given up on life altogether. Lord Tarley looked more confused by the man than the monkey. Sir Miles is a gift? The crown requested a new Master at Arms after the untimely demise of Sir Aaron Santigar. A king must be trained as a knight, and since the passing of my fathers, Sir Miles had been the finest jouster in all of Dorne. And yes, this a king must be trained as a knight comes up when Loras is trying to train Tommen in A Feast for Crows, so this comes in. It's like the crown wanted this. Lord Tarley's eyes met Cersei's as she gave the slightest of nods. He did not look pleased to pack his court so full of Dornishmen, nor could Cersei blame him. Dornish or so Lady Nim is here, and now all these other Dornish have come to court, and Sir Miles is going to be with the king every day, training him as the Master at Arms. So no mirth threatened his face now. The Manwoodies of Kingsgrave, that house is known to revere their ancestors who had once slain a king. Yes, that's not that the name didn't imply it, but that's World of Ice and Fire kind of stuff. Did they threaten Tommen so brazenly? So now she's imagining that, because they're of Kingsgrave, that they must feel like killing kings. They're kingslayers. Sir Miles' lord brother was the one who dressed Oberyn before his battle. That is true. But go back that before the before the fight, he's getting dressed by Damon Sand and um, uh, Dagos Manwoody. These things Cersei did not forget because she is spiteful. We have not had a master at arms for some time, said Maester Balabar. We must thank the Queen Dowager. We must. And remember, the Lady Nym thinks Cersei tried to kill Trystane. The Lady Nym looked back up at Cersei, her gaze lingering this time. In token of our thanks to her grace, we are pleased to bring Princess Myrcella for a short visit. The princess must return home to Dor in due time, of course, in fulfillment of our agreement with the crown. Now, here's a very tiny thing that I added in that is not that important, but their three gifts are a monkey, a lion, a monkey, a bull, and a lion, which is what Quentin's three masks are in A Dance with Dragons. You know, the monkey, the bull, and the lion. So it's just a very hidden little callback that doesn't really mean anything, but that's it. Yeah. Your agreement with the imp. Cersei dug her nails into her hand. Curse this bastard bitch and her would-be kingslayer. I'm aware of that promise, Lord Tarley grumbled. Is Trystane among you? This is a really fun thing, and this came pretty late. One of the editors noted, like, we don't really have there wasn't originally a reason for people not asking for Trystane, and a good reason for Trystane to stay behind. And so we decided that, the Dornish would steal the red spot ruse from Sir Aerys Oakheart. Aerys Oakheart used red spots to do a swap for Myrcella and Rosamund, or not do a swap for Myrcella and Rosamund. And so now the Dornish are using the same ruse. I regret to say that before we depart, the prince is shown to have red spots. Lady Nymeria's eyes were still on Cersei. He remains safe in Dorne. So Nymeria is trying to say, we've got Trystane is safe. He can't be killed by you. Cersei has no idea what she's talking about, because that was not a real plot. That was that was made up. Doran Martell made that up to piss off the Sand Snakes. Her captors escorted the queen downstairs to stand before the Dornish retinue. All eyes were on the twins, the Fowler twins, a pair of tall women with wispy yellow hair. Does the court really need another set? This is a bit of a joke because we already have Cersei and Jaime, and then we have the Redwine twins, and now we have the Fowler twins. And this is also kind of a joke back to the Dance of the Dragons, where I'm like, there's really 4 sets of twins in King's Landing during the events of the Dance of the Dragons. Yes, there's 4 sets of twins. So, yeah. So there's the Lannister twins. There's the Targaryen twins. There's the Kingsguard twins, and the 4th one. Who is the 4th? Am I forgetting somebody? Is there 2 sets? I'm forgetting somebody, but there's 4 sets. All at once. Oh yeah, Damon's daughters are twins, so that's 4 twins, 4 sets of twins. All at once, the Lady Nym was solemn, and this is the thing: is Your Grace, my uncle Prince Doran Nymeris Martell of Dorne laments the villainy of Sir Gerald Dane. May Sir Balon Swan deliver justice to this false knight, just as you delivered justice to Sir Gregor Clegane. Of course, we know that Sir Balon Swan is not delivering justice to Sir Gerald Dane. That's not going to happen at all. It didn't happen in the Hota story. And Cersei did not deliver justice to Sir Gregor Clegane, as far as we know, if we're assuming that he's Sir Robert Strong. Justice would be me crushing your eyes as the mountain did your father's. Large and lustrous as they were, Nym's eyes begged for it. Cersei imagined plucking the pretty things out and squeezing them in her fingers till they burst. She was glad Sir Gregor had fought so valiantly that day against Sir Prince Oberyn, and if Sir Robert Strong fought half so well during her own trial, this is to make the transition of Cersei realizing that Lady Nym spoils her plans. Her plan is for Sir Robert Strong to save her, but if Sir Robert Strong reveals himself, they all know she lied about the mountain. And so she needs to have a transition. So like she's thanking her for bringing justice to Sir Gregor, so now she's thinking about him crushing the eyes, and then she's like, "Oh wait, if in that trial by combat, and then we go to another trial by combat, and it's just like, oh, she will see him." So you've got to do these mind things to transition the text. She will see him. Her heart sank with the realization. Oh, you clever little imp. He had planned for the bastard girl to be here, to look upon the giant Sir Robert with those big dark eyes. And yeah, this is something that, obviously this gets into the Dornish master plan of what are the Dornish attempting with this whole Skull Lady Nym showing up for the trial thing that's happening, how is it going to affect the plot? What are the Dornish going to demand once they get angry? What are they going to demand? What is it going to mean? Should he prevail, the Dornish would raise a righteous fury over the false skull they'd been sent. They would call the queen a liar, demand her skull next, threaten war unless appeased. Let there be war, she decided. Let all the Dornish perish in their complicity. This is her being a little insane. I mean, this is assuming that she wins and that somehow, even though Kevin specifically said that even if she wins, her power is gone, she's going to go back to Casterly Rock. She doesn't necessarily believe this. Let there be war. She would need to convince her Aunt Jenna of that, of course. But what power do the Martells have over House Lannister now? They were fools to give up their hostage. I mean, it's a little insane. They have armies, obviously, but I suppose, in Cersei's mind, the armies would have to march through the Stormlands, where John Connington is, or the Tyrells, her enemies, and things like that. She's just not thinking too much. She's nuts. But it leads her to thinking of the hostage, and then she thinks of Myrcella. Without a word, the queen fell to her knees before the girl. What beauty has been stolen from me? As she lifted the veil to look, the opals rattled. It was worse than she imagined. And there's a little, twist. We're reading it thinking that she's concerned about the disfigurement, but in fact she's concerned because it's not Myrcella under there. And so we get this little twist here. I mean, we did kind of reveal in the Hotah chapters that the swap happened, right? But here this is confirming it once and for all. Cersei wanted to scream, but she didn't. She knew that was what he wanted, for her to weep, to beg, to plead. That's what they all wanted. She could feel their gaze on her. They leered over her naked body. Now they hungered to see her bare her soul as well. This is and this, we'll get into this conversation later about body and soul and Cersei's weird, twisted beliefs about this, but here we go. They can't. They won't. Tears were welling, but she would not let them fall. She closed her eyes. Stay in the dark. It's safe in the dark. Bringing it back to the beginning, bringing it back to Bran. When she was ready, she stood. Her eyes snapped open. Lord Randall, may I ask that she remain veiled until she is fully recovered? It is not for a princess to be gawked at. And then the red spots add to this. This is why the red spots, which originally, when this was put together, we didn't have the red spots, and then it was added. But the veil, at first was oh, she's going to remain veiled, but that doesn't really fool Tommen, So she has to come up with this, because they're going to be okay, she's veiled, she can go see her brother. But all this talk of red spots worries me. Let her to be kept apart from his grace for the nonce. We must not gamble with the king's health. Tarly considered the request with a scowl of suspicion. Done, he finally said, and soon the court was dismissed. That night, after a bath and a grueling seventh prayer, this is the idea that that the truly religious pray 7 times a day, and in fact, in some sects of Christianity, Ethiopian Christianity, they pray 7 times a day. The queen lay abed, echoing through the bedchamber were the snores of Septim Moel, needed because of what's going to happen. Especially fierce this evening, a cacophony of clacks and wheezes that started and stopped without rhythm. even on his drunkest night. Robert had never been so loud. Night was beside her, pretending to sleep again. Dorn, she brooded as she glared at the girl. Dorn everywhere I look, listening, scheming. The girl's breasts rose and fell with each. The nipples poked through her bedroom in the cold. And this really is, if, it's clearly like George's plan to send Tyene and Lady Nym are both going to King's Landing. We know that Tyene is going to be one of Cersei's novices. And then there's Lady Nym. So yes, like no matter what, Cersei is going to be like, why are all these Dornish showing up at once? She's going to feel paranoid like this. The queen wondered what Nait would do should she begin to pleasure herself right here and now. And this is just getting back to the weird sexualness of Cersei chapters. At first we're thinking that like Cersei has a sexual attraction towards Tyene, and maybe she does, but it's really more about violence. Would she still pretend to slumber? Not to hear her, not to feel the shaking bed? Would she report it all deceptive well to the High Sparrow, straight to the imp himself? It doesn't, would she? Like, no doubt it would arouse all three. And what would happen if Cersei slid her hand between the little novice's legs instead? Would she even bother to protest, to play at resistance? Dornish women are all wanton. Nait's little breaths went in and out, and Cersei was reminded of her mother. This is just kind of the fucked upness of her brain, right? Like, she's looking at this, like, she's sexualizing this girl beside her, and then she's thinking about her mom and thinking about her mom's possible lesbian relationships with other people. Lady Joanna Lannister had known Lady Nymeria's grandmother, Obella Martell, the Princess of Dorne. The Princess of, like, Oberyn and Doran's mother is never named, so we named her Obella, which is one of Oberyn's children, figuring that's where the name came from. He was naming it after his mother, because he has Elia named after his sister, his fifth child. So his sixth child perhaps is named after his mother. That's all. So that's where, Obella seems like a logical name for the Princess of Dorne. They'd been friends, more than friends, fellow ladies in waiting to Princess Rhaela Targaryen. They dressed her, they bathed her, they shared her bed. Yes, all of these things are true, but that doesn't mean anything, right? What else might they have shared? It's funny how like minds can work. Like at first you're like, oh man, these like women bathing like each other. Oh, it's so sexual. But you could take the same thing and be like, after gym class, all the guys go into the shower naked. Like, do you need to have like, big orgy scenes? It's just like where the mind of certain people go, and Cersei being weird, right? She was certain Elia Martell and Ashara Dane had been lovers. This is kind of just adding some fun spin to lore, because Cersei is always wrong about everything, and so this Lady Ashara had been her lady in waiting. Had that been the true motive from her leap from the tower? Ned Stark telling her what Sir Gregor Clegane had done to her princess. And this is a bit of a callback to Barristan, who's thinking about like why she killed herself, and the he thinks it was because of her stillborn daughter. The queen considered what she could do to this Dornish girl. It would be an easy thing to run one hand down Nait's stomach over her hair until she came at last to her mound. She would begin gently, and then when she was good and wet, she would go harder and harder. And when the novice was close to climax, this is a bit of, we're fat pink masting things here, we're doing George sex writing, Cersei's other hand would grab her by the throat and strangle the life from her, from the spying little slut. As gratifying thought, but the corpse. There's nowhere to dump the corpse. Just kind of this dark humor. A loud clack sounded from Noelle's throat. Nait stirred, and then opened her deep blue eyes. Your Grace, you're still awake. The voice was gentle. Is it your daughter that troubles you? It's my want of daughter. It's my want of one that troubles me. I fear for her. She was disfigured by that fiend Darkstar, stripped of all her beauty. I mean, here we're told now again that the swap happened, but it's not fully 100% revealed yet. Her smile was gentle too. Only the beauty of the flesh, Marcella's soul, remains vibrant and pure. So this paragraph, next paragraph changed a bit. Um, it's just a very interesting discussion about the nature of human beings. Cersei takes on you know, a weird that there is no separation between mind and body sort of sense. And I think many, non-religious people kind of also who don't believe in souls would say, yes, like there's no difference between the body and the mind. But Cersei's taking that kind of logical belief to a really fucked up conclusion, right? That means if there's no difference between the body and the mind, then if I'm beautiful on the outside, I must be beautiful on the inside. This really fucked up logic, right? And so it's supposed to be fucked up. It's supposed to really be weird, right? That was empty prattle, she knew. In Cersei's experience, the soul took the shape of the flesh, as wine took the shape of the body, and how else? By the way, in the original version of this paragraph, there was a mention of Stannis's fool patch face because he was hit on the head and became an idiot. So she kind of was like, doesn't that prove that the soul and the body are one? Because of patch face. But, as things got edited, patch face got removed. But it had no other shape to take. If an ugly maid wasn't born bitter, then she would be made so by her ugliness, till bitter made her ugly within and without. The sound-bodied man grew brave and self-assured, the weak-bodied cowardly and self-loathing. And this is also the fucked up stuff about this. There's always like this kernel of truth. There's a kernel of truth in that, that it's true that good-looking people are often more confident, while an ugly person would be more insecure, right? Like there's a kernel of truth of what she's saying, but she's going to take it to a fucked up conclusion. Weren't her own brothers the best examples? Jaime and Tyrion look just like what they are. Well, no, Jaime and Tyrion are, Tyrion's not as evil as Cersei thinks, and Jaime is not as good, and all sorts of things. And so did Cersei, bold and strong and beautiful. And that's what the world saw in Cersei Lannister. And that's what she was on the inside. Just this fucked up idea that like if she's beautiful on the inside, she must be beautiful on the outside. She must be beautiful on the inside, which is kind of the old. I mean, it's what Sansa kind of believed at the beginning of the story. Disney princesses being beautiful and things like this. It's good guys and villains. Jaime would praise her when they lay together. Her brilliant eyes, her full lips, her golden hair. This gets into the weird, fucked up, like egoism of Jaime and Cersei. Jaime and Cersei like each other because they look like themselves and they both love themselves. Jaime changing now, right? And this is an idea that comes from In the House of the Worm with Annalyn in that story. Annalyn likes a woman that looks just like him, and he specifically says, "Oh, I bet I only like her because she looks like me." And so, as Annalyn is proto Jaime in that story. It annoyed her, but now we get into it. Her face was his face, she told him, and when he praised her, he merely praised himself. And so he complimented her mind. But there was no division to be made in the beauty he saw there, no way to pull the salt from the soup. This is just our poetic way to say, like, something's indivisible. They were one. His mind and her body. His body and her mind. One flesh, one soul, one perfect being. This, like, really weird, fucked up idea. That's the whole thing. It's just get into her insanity here. She couldn't expect a novice to understand. So she simply said, I only hope for my daughter's happiness. Hope is good. This little thing is for a setup for a dark joke. I mean, hope is the mother's gift to her children, says the seven-parted star. For what they dream is what they craft. Like what they're thinking about is what they're going to do on the earth. That's an unsettling thought. She dreamt of naught but death. She's only thinking about death, so she's only going to do death, You're from Dorne. Do you stare at the maimed? Did they stare at the maimed there in the streets? Now we're bringing it back to Dornish law. I would be lying if I said the injured do not draw eyes, but it is our way to give them dignity. So that they never have to beg. Under Dornish law, they must be housed and fed by their lords. This comes from the World of Ice and Fire, as some of the Game and Paler Hair edicts. Cersei knew little of Dornish law, but it had been in her thoughts since she learned of Myrcella's return. We needed a way for Cersei to know at least a little bit about Dornish law, so we just made Grandmaster Pycelle an expert. Why not? He's dead. Grandmaster Pycelle had studied extensively, and she'd heard him say a few times that few were so familiar with its twists and convolutions. And this is an important thing, is that really, like, at the very beginning, the only thing we know about Dornish law is that women and men are treated equally in succession. But Arianne has a huge book on Dornish law, so there has to be more to it. And we hear about like the edicts of Game and Paler and the charity aspect. So there's something more to it. So that's why we but the idea is that it's actually tricky. And we're going to get into this trickiness. This trickiness is going to come in later. It's not as simple as the characters think. Though she thought the old boar was just boasting, the details escaped her. But he'd had occasion over the years to drone on about whether the edicts of Game and Paler would have strengthened the realm, or whether Queen Mariah Myrtelle should have pressed her husbands for reforms. This is just, throwing in some World of Ice and Fire stuff. Now she'd wish she'd paid the old fool more heed. But one point stuck with her. Under Dornish law, lands and titles passed to the eldest child, not the eldest male. That's straight out of the appendix of A Feast for Crows. I mean, not A Feast for Crows, from Dance with Dragons. Straight out of the appendix for Dance with Dragons. Just so, if Dornish law applied to all 7 kingdoms, Myrcella would be queen, and your grace the Lady of Casterly Rock. And now we're coming back to Oberyn's conversation with Tyrion before his trial by combat. In the chapter before his trial by combat, they have a discussion about Dornish law, and they specifically talk about Cersei and whether or not she would prefer Dornish law because she would be Lady of Casterly Rock outright. And so we're coming back to that exact same situation. The next chapter is going to be her trial by combat. We're having the Dornish law discussion. I am Lady of Casterly Rock, Cersei reminded herself to keep her temper. Of course, but your brothers cannot contest your claim. This is the funny thing. The novice had a point. Jaime was a knight of the Kingsguard and could hold no lands, but these are shameful times. It seemed that men could quit the Kingsguard. This is, of course, a joke because Sir Barristan had done just that. Cersei dismissed him from the Kingsguard. And Sir Boros, he was dismissed from the Kingsguard. And Sir Osmond, he was dismissed from the Kingsguard. The one person that does quit, the Hound, she doesn't even mention. So, like, this is her twisting history. Okay, this was intentional. Should Jaime break his vow, he might claim the rock as his birthright, just as father always desired. That was true. And who would back her claim against her brothers? Probably nobody. But twins or no, it was recorded fact that Cersei had been born first. If the firstborn child was heir, it was she and she alone. Yeah, that's just a reminder in case people forgot that Cersei was first out of the womb. By the way, with the Redwyne twins, we don't know which one. We don't know which one came first. So then there was the imp. He might emerge from the shadows and press a claim on the rock at any time. Would Stannis of the Ironborn support his vile claim over hers? Why not, for all the gold he'd promised them? And this is exactly what Tyrion is doing. So, Cersei can occasionally be right. Though not with Stannis of the Ironborn. He's with the Second Sons. In truth, this Dornish law would fix so many problems. With Myrcella queen, Cersei would be free of Mace Tyrell and Randall Tarley and Paxter Redwyne. Her daughter could choose a new hand, a new justiciar, a new Grand Admiral. This is some foreshadowing, because we kind of know in the future that the Lannisters and the Ironborn, Euron's Ironborn, are going to kind of team up. So, safe upon a throne at Casterly Rock, away from sparrows and reachers and Dornish, she could blot out this ill-writ page of her life's history and begin again. And now the full reveal. If only Lady Nym had brought home Myrcella instead of Rosamund. Boom. And now this is actually a bit of covering one of George's weird. It's not a plot hole, but it's a weird curiosity that no one ever talks about. But Tyrion had played this trick before he ever sent Myrcella south. So we know from Aerys Oakheart that this was Tyrion's plan. The Spider had told Cersei about and okay, we know from Aerys Oakheart that Tyrion is the one that planned the swap of and darkening Myrcella's hair. But the thing is, around the same time in A Clash of Kings, Cersei does the same thing for Tommen. And then Varys informs Tyrion and they stop her. And so it's really weird that independently, two Lannisters, Cersei and Tyrion, come up with the same idea at the same time, right? This is from A Clash of Kings. Tommen does scheme to spirit a brown-haired Tommen to be fostered at Rosby. And then because Varys finds out about it and tells Tyrion, Tyrion intercepts them. So they had a swap situation, and Tyrion had a swap situation of coloring the kid's hair at the exact same time. And it's this like remarkable coincidence. So it's a little bit of a plot hole because it's just too much of a contrivance that these two characters would come up with the exact same plan at the exact same time. Not that coloring hair is apparently, a difficult thing. Obviously there's young Griff, but like, it's just really weird that it's within a chapter of each other, right? It's like Myrcella goes, and then the next chapter, Cersei is trying to spirit off Tommen. And so the way I close this plot hole is that Varys told Cersei about Tyrion's plan, and then she took his idea, and so this is why this paragraph is the way it is. The Spider had told Cersei about it, and this makes Varys telling everybody. He's informing on Cersei and Tyrion to each other. Except that Eglantine would darken Myrcella's hair and Rosamund would play the princess. It was clever, though she was loath to admit it, a way to keep her daughter safe from Stannis' pirates on the journey and from Dornish daggers once they arrived. So clever that she'd taken it for herself. What was good for the lioness was good for the lion. Thus she'd schemed to spirit a brown-haired Tommen to be fostered at Rosby, though that plan fell to pieces all too soon. Yeah, that's just, I'm closing a plot hole, I don't know if it's a plot hole, but I'm closing a really weird coincidence, a really weird, miraculous coincidence. But she'd never thought the girls would keep up the game for so long. If Lady Nym herself did not know the true princess, who did? That's the question. Who does? Myrcella's safest when no one knows where she truly is, right? From Aerys Oakheart. False names and dubious tales. How long can a child stay hidden? A long time it seemed. This is young Griff. How long can how long can a child stay hidden? Well, a long time. And now we come to the whole theme of the chapter. It doesn't really matter, right? If something's been replaced, if it has the same fundamental function, and we're talking about, exterior appearance and essence, which what Cersei was talking about. She first thinks that there's no difference, it doesn't matter, and then here we're that essence and appearance are one, but here we're saying that essence and appearance are different. And she thought back to the sconce. What did it matter that it had been replaced? And of course, we're thinking about Myrcella here. What does it matter that she'd been replaced? She recalled in the Great Sept of Baelor that there was, so the sconce is something that holds torches. So it gives light. It shows the path. This is so Myrcella, sconce, and now we're talking about the tapestry. She recalled in the Great Sept of Baelor, there was a tapestry of the crone. The crone holds the beacon. It lights the way. That was said to have been woven by Baelor the Blessed himself. Only according to Pycelle, it hadn't been. A misplaced candle had destroyed King Baelor's work during the reign of second Jaehaerys. A replica hastily made to take its place. A few septons and maesters knew the truth, those who pored over the records, but with no one else the wiser. And what of it? Did it still not did it not still light the way for those who believed? This comes back to the sconce. Sconce is light. So this illumination of I mean, we're going on a lot. The crone illuminates but in people's spiritual heart, the tapestry illuminates, the sconce illuminates. And the sconce is going to illuminate for Cersei, but Myrcella illuminates. This is the idea: is it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if it's been replaced as long as it still lights the way. Gotcha. For those who believed, the believers. But a princess cannot just hang upon a wall. Hang upon a wall like a sconce or a tapestry, right? And it's kind of funny because at the same time, Theon in the next chapter is hanging upon the prince of Winterfell is hanging upon the wall. Keeping up the ruse in Dorne was one thing. Here in the Red Keep, it wouldn't be long before she was discovered for who she truly was. To most of the court, she was a stranger. Yeah, I'd actually gone through the court and thinking about it, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's very few people that could be like, oh, that's Myrcella. But it doesn't matter because the servants are there. Half the servants knew her face, and then there was Sir Meryn and Sir Boros, and of course, Tommen. Cersei's red spots ruse might keep them apart a few days, a week, but soon Tommen would demand to see his sister. He'd want to talk to her, play with her, look beneath the veil. And what brother could fail to know his sister's face? That's obviously a joke at Theon, because Theon does not recognize his sister, Asha, and makes a move on her. It makes no matter, said Cersei. Dornish laws for Dorne. Perhaps your grace could visit then and see for herself, suggested Nynaeve. Return with the princess after your trial. This is exactly what Oberyn suggests to Tyrion. So what's funny is that like Cersei is making all of these connections between Oberyn and Lady Nym, but she's not making the connections between Tyene, even though this is his daughter as well, though she doesn't trust her, If I live, why wouldn't you? The gods defend the innocent, of course, as the lords defend their small folk. This is a very concise trashing of feudalism and divine right. People really did believe that like God is above here, but then you have the lords, and through divine right they rule. And so God's plan and God's civilization goes down in this pyramid. And so if God is if you're showing that actually it doesn't work that way because the lords aren't really defending their small folk, yeah, the gods aren't really defending the lords, right? So like it's the whole thing is silly. Like Cersei quite concisely and cleverly just like completely destroys the idea. Cersei can be clever. Nynaeve giggled. And now we are getting into some back to Oberyn and Doran and back to Bran, right? We're all but players in the Father's plan, lords and small folk alike. Now she is saying here the Father as in God, but this is funny because her father is Oberyn, and she believes, he had a plan, he and Doran had a plan. So it's the Father's plan. But we're also talking about Bran, time-traveling Bran. Is time-traveling Bran controlling everything? And if so, what about free will? And this is the entire, question of life, right, that people have. Like, if there's a God and God has a plan for the universe, what about free will? How do those things not contradict? Of course they contradict, but, that's where we are, and we are addressing this. And George brought this contradiction up several times in the story. But anyway, we got another joke here. We're all but players in the Father's plan, lords and small folk alike. It'd be like the Father to scheme against me. So she's saying that the gods are scheming against her, is probably in a sexism sense, but yeah, it'd be like the Father to scheme against me. No luck for me. His plan. What of my own choices? And this gets to her and her relationship with Tywin as well. She didn't like the fact that he was trying to command her life around. Your grace's choices, they are made freely. Free as a bird in the wind. We can choose to fly with the Father or against him, but his plan is in the air. and this is largely the explanation for the contradiction. They'll say like, oh yeah, God has a plan and you have free will, but your free will is to go with his plan or not. The plan's going to happen. You're just, you're not going to really affect the grand plan, but you've got a choice of being part of it or being against it, And so that's usually the religious explanation for free will versus, predestination. And she says, there's a plan in the air, a storm, as if this bird in the wind, you can glide with God's plan or against it. It's unstoppable as it is just. That is the nature of destiny. We only suffer to work against his will. And then she's saying, don't we all suffer in a storm? Like, don't we all, like, if this is all part of a plan, that isn't everyone suffering? And that's the big question for like God and time traveling brain and all sorts of stuff. Knight suggested they rest, and the queen consented. After all, on the morrow, she is to be tried for murder. Bringing it back. The novice closed her eyes again, but it was not until the hour of the nightingale that Cersei could be sure she was asleep. It was then she rose from the bed and crept across the room. Cersei Lannister grasped the sconce and gave it a twist. There was a rumble loud, but not so loud as Septim Wells snores. This is also when Tyrion uses his secret passage. It's very similar kind of language here about twisting things. And then at the back of the hearth, a black square appeared where there had been stone. I think with Tyrion, a square appears, but it's light because he's in the wall and he's coming out. But she is out looking in. So, and here we say, beyond the flames, she saw the way. And so, yeah, I mean, you can interpret that as you will, beyond the flames, beyond the hell, beyond everything. Like she saw the way, but this is of course Maegor the Cruel's escape route that she has discovered, and we'll see what she does with this. But yeah, and of course, the swapped Rosamund is illuminating her way. She's coming up with her scheme to somehow deal with everything. So. Anyway, that's that. Thank you for this. I think Cersei came out pretty well, pretty damn fun at least. And the big thing, because people are always complaining that not enough is happening in the story, but the thing is, and this was kind of important when you look at the order of things. We have a huge battle of fire, and then we have the Harrower. Which then leads into more battles. So we kind of need Cersei to break up. We need something a little more chill to break up all the constant battle chapters. Okay, we've got so many battle chapters, and so we've got to have something to a little break here. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.